Okay, today we're going to be talking about the pentatonic scales, and I'm going to show you a way to work on the scales up the neck, memorize them, start to learn the notes on the neck, memorize some of those, and pay attention to your right hand and work on your alternate picking. So usually what I do is I present, these scales depending on where people are in their knowledge and how much they've been playing. But let's say that someone knows a couple of the scales, but they don't really know how they connect together, they don't know all of them, or they're just beginning and they want to develop their right hand as well. So the most common scale, usually the first scale that people learn when they play guitar, is what you'll hear people refer to as box one or the first pattern. I will probably interchange those terms, and I'm going to try to avoid them because not everybody sees certain shapes as like pattern number 2 or pattern number 3. So I will try to refer to them, since we're in A minor, as like the position where we are in the neck. So if you look at the diagram, the neck diagram that says A minor pentatonic scales, and then it has root, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat seventh. Those are the scale degrees that make up this scale, where a major scale has like root, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. This is a root, a flatted third, a fourth, a fifth, and a flat seven. So one of the first things I want to say is it was confusing to me. When I was figuring this stuff out, I learned these patterns and I was working on memorizing them, but I didn't understand that essentially what I was learning was the same 5 notes across the neck. So I want you to think of all of these scales, these patterns individually. Right? There are 5 different patterns that we'll learn. But I want you to think of more of them as like it's just the same scale across the neck. So the formula that I was saying for this scale for A minor pentatonic would be a root, which is A, the flatted third, which is C, the fourth, which is D, the E is the fifth, and the flatted seventh is the G. So we're going to learn those notes all across the neck, but we'll learn them in different positions up the neck. So if you look at that the neck diagrams, what I have is the first pattern that we'll learn. So the A minor pentatonic starting on the root note on A, and then below it is the second pattern, which is exactly the same 5 notes, but we're starting on C. And you can see how I stack them up. You can see pattern 1, pattern 2, right? And then down below, I show you how they fit together. And what I've put in red are the A notes. So if you don't know the fretboard at all, at least start paying attention to where those root notes are. And those root notes are the same in every pattern. We can move the scales around the neck, but in each of these 5 patterns, the root is located in the same place. So that's super important that you start learning the neck that way, because this will play into how you solo, how you select the notes that you do when you're playing, how it relates to chord tones, triads. This is pretty important stuff. So we're just going to start with this first box, this first scale. And we're going to start here at the 5th fret on A. And we're going to play this sequence of notes. We're going to play A, C, D, E, G. And then it just repeats. A, C, D, E, G, A. And then we get up to that C. But what we're going to do is double pick this. This gets the right hand used to alternate picking. And before you start the scale, I want you to find these A notes. So if you look at that neck diagram, in red, all of those are A notes. So look down at your hand and just find those A notes, okay? And what I usually have people do when we're like, if they don't know any of the scales, we start with the first one. I have them learn it as a picking exercise, and then you're memorizing the shape. And hopefully you're identifying where the root is on the neck. So you're getting about 4 things going on. So let's start here. And if you look at the tab on the other piece of paper, lesson 1, I call it, double picking shape 1. And then on the other piece of music, I have it written out with the note names, the root notes identified, and then the formula for the scale, which is up above, the root flat, third, 4, 5, flat, 7. So we'll start at the 5th fret, and I suggest you do this, get a notebook, and keep a journal of your tempos. Practice with a metronome. The most important thing is to be consistent and to play in time. And then keep that going up the neck, and do that for a couple days. Keep track of your tempo. Come back to, maybe 3 or 4 days later. Increase the tempo a couple clicks. Do it there. So this isn't about, going crazy and trying to play fast. It's about learning the fretboard, at least the roots, working on your right hand alternate picking, and then putting these shapes, these patterns together, and then ultimately realizing these 5 notes across the neck. Okay, so here we go. We're just going to start in the 5th fret, and I approach it like this with people. I just tell them to go down, up, down, up, down, up. Keep it nice and steady. Repeat each note twice, so we're double picking like this. And then at that point, we move up a fret and do the same thing. And then we move up. Now we're in the 7th fret. And if you look at your neck diagram, the other piece, it has the frets and the names of the frets written out. So you'd want to look down and go, oh, where are my root notes? Here, here, and here. So B, B, B. This is B minor pentatonic. Okay, now we're at the 10th fret. If you look at the neck diagram, what's the name of that note? That's a D. So where do we find our Ds? Here, here, and here. Those are the octave Ds out of that first pattern. And then I would play the scale. Okay, so what I would do is I would start in the 1st fret, and I would name those, the 1st fret is F. I would find those notes in that shape, in that pattern, F, F, F. okay? And then I would start here, and I would go through that picking exercise, down, up, move up a fret. Think, okay, this is a sharp G flat. Down, up, okay, G, right? G sharp A flat. So you're snaking your way all the way up the neck, working on your double picking, memorizing the pattern, keeping it nice and steady, and then memorizing the shape, finding the root notes. So I won't go all the way up the neck, but if I were to start, let's say, you could even use the open string. So. Okay, so I think you get the idea. Play this all the way up the neck, and I would play it all the way up to like the 15th and the 17th fret, because you want to get used to playing in the more narrow frets, what you have to do with your hand around the heel of the neck, on the guitar, get comfortable with that, name the frets as you go up, and then be challenging the tempo every couple days. You want to push yourself so that you feel yourself kind of like it's getting challenging, but you're not missing notes and the wheels aren't coming off. You're not adding a bunch of tension. As we speed up tempo, it's pretty normal to start like kind of gripping really hard and squeezing too hard with both hands, with death grip on the pick. So you just want to be, pretty nice and loose, work on your muscle memory of the shape, memorize where the roots are, and then just work on keeping your hands. Right? So you could pick any tempo you want, and once you have the shape memorized, you feel pretty good about shape 1, then we jump into shape 2. So we'll look at that one in a second.